So my name is Erica Hall, and we're here at the Peaslee Building Committee open meeting, Tuesday, October 15th. This meeting is being recorded, and I have been informed that we do have a quorum here tonight. So I'd like to call the meeting to order at 7:34. And before we jump into our agenda, I would like to just run introductions again quickly of the voting members at this table. So I'll start. I'm Erica Hall, and I'm the chair of the building committee.
I'm Diana Nicholas. I'm the vice chair of the building committee.
Mitch Cohen, representative of the select board.
Rob Tomasetti.
Tristan Besant.
Kevin Biersch.
Lauren Bailey-Jones, school committee.
Kelly Gannett, school committee, and prospective secretary if we revote it.
Thank you very much. I'd also like to introduce the folks sitting opposite to us.
So Greg Martin, superintendent.
Diane Wackel, interim town administrator.
Jason Little, finance director for the town.
Sean Durkin.
Thank you very much. And we have some other folks joining us.
Maren Coakley, Peaslee principal.
Whittaker Falk, a parent of Peaslee School. Sean Devon, the principal at Southampton.
John Rath, the chair of the Financial Planning Committee.
Scott Stockland, liaison from the Financial Planning Committee.
Peter Allens, consultant from Turner & Townsend Erie. I'm owner's project manager, just listening in.
Thank you very much. So thanks everyone for joining us tonight. The first order of business on our agenda is to approve meeting minutes. This committee met on September 10th electronically. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from September.
Motion to approve the minutes from previous meeting.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion about the minutes?
Just on distribution process, I think they were attached to the meeting invite through Google Docs or something like that. I don't get those, so I have not a chance. I have no doubt that they're fine, so I'm happy to approve, but I'd request that attachments be sent out the old-fashioned way.
Thank you.
As email attachments rather than attachments to a Google invite.
Thank you. We can make a note of that.
Great.
Is there any further discussion? And hearing none, I would entertain a vote by roll call, starting with Diana Nicholas.
Yes.
Tristan Besant.
Yes.
Rob Tomasetti.
Yes.
Kelly Gannett.
Yes.
Lauren Bailey-Jones.
Yes.
Mitch Cohen.
Yes.
Sean Durkins.
Yes.
And Kevin Wersch. Thank you. The minutes have been approved. Our agenda item 3 has to do with a clerical matter, which is to ratify a vote that was taken at the September 10th meeting. The vote was regarding the vice chair, and because the motion was made by a non-voting member of the committee, that motion needs to be ratified. A new motion should be made by a voting member of this committee and seconded by a voting member, and then we can take a vote. And I'll remind you that the motion was that Diana Nicholas would serve as the vice chair of the Peaslee Building Committee. At this time, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to appoint Diana Nicholas as vice chair.
Thank you for the motion. Is there a second?
I will second that said motion.
Thank you. The motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? And hearing none, we're voting on a motion to approve Diana Nicholas to serve as the vice chair. I'll take a vote by roll call.
We don't actually need to do roll call votes for full in-person meetings unless you want to.
Oh, great.
There's
No,
reason.
absolutely. I think that saves a lot of time. Okay, so then I will, by a voice vote, call for, this is a motion for Diana to serve as the vice chair, and by voice vote, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you. Our next agenda item is a similar business. It has to do with a secretary. Kelly was voted, and thank you for serving as secretary. A non-voting member of our committee was the second on the motion for Kelly to serve as the secretary. So in similar manner, I would entertain a new motion for Kelly to serve as the secretary.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that Kelly would serve as the secretary for the Peaslee Building Committee. Is there any discussion? Hearing none by voice vote. All those in favor of the motion for Kelly to serve as secretary, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstaining? Motion carries. Thank you both again for your willingness to serve. Now you've had a second opportunity to say yes or no, and we're glad that you're serving with us. So that being said, our next agenda item has to do with a review and update on the process and some key milestones. So I'm going to turn things over to Greg Martineau for an update and refer you to your packet.
Sure. At our last meeting, we talked about the MSBA process and the different steps. This evening in person, I thought we could review the steps in a little bit more detail and answer any questions. I know that many of you have experience with MSBA and launching projects and working with MSBA, so I think much of this information is probably review, but I think it's important for not only the members of voting members, but also for the community to understand the phases that we'll move through. So MSBA is a very prescriptive process in terms of being invited into their core building project and has phases that it requires districts to move through. So the first phase is being invited into its eligibility phase. On April 1st, MSBA did invite the town of Northborough into eligibility. That is a 270-day period of time where we have to submit a number of documents to MSBA. We have to think about enrollment. We have to think about forming a building committee. So there's a number of steps in that process, and we'll review all the milestones in more detail in a second. Once we move through eligibility, MSBA Board of Directors will determine if it will move the town of Northborough into the feasibility phase. So in the feasibility phase, in an owner's project manager, hiring designer architects, and then going through the phases of really thinking about what are all of the potential options and studying those options to get to a preferred design, which then is used to really think about how we move forward in the next phase. In feasibility is also part of schematic design, so really getting the preferred design and coming up with the schematic design, so really getting to the details, getting really good cost estimates of what that preferred design looks like, and then also securing funding from the town, so bringing it to the citizens of Northborough for approval at town meeting and then eventually at the ballot. Once we have funded the project, then we go into the construction phase. So hiring construction firm, thinking about what process the town of Northborough will use in terms of construction. There are a couple of options, and then construction commences, and usually that's depending on the scope of the project, 18 to 24 potentially longer construction period. So from being invited into eligibility and successfully moving through all the milestones, it usually is anywhere between a 5 to 7 year period. So it's a long process, a very thorough process, and I think one that allows the community to really think about what is the best option for that town and what are the goals it's trying to accomplish. So I did include a couple documents for you to review. I also encourage members to spend time on the MSBA website. There's a wealth of information. It talks about all the different phases and what to expect. I did provide kind of a high-level overview and a module overview. There are a lot of trainings that you can go through that are recorded webinars, so I would encourage members to spend some time really getting familiar with the different phases, and especially feasibility, as that is the next phase that potentially the town of Northborough will be entering. I also did include the last successful MSBA project the town of Northborough engaged in with MSBA, and that is the Lincoln Street School project. So we are sitting in the product of that work and that committee's work and the town's effort. And I just listed the funding of that project and the reimbursement amount MSBA provided the community. And the MSBA reimbursement amount was 52.88% of the total cost of the project. So MSBA has a significant investment in communities, and MSBA's contribution of the Lincoln Street School project was significant. And I believe we can expect a similar reimbursement amount or rate moving forward with the potential project. So that's just some context of MSBA's partnership and contribution financially. And lastly, I do have a table with all of the milestones and requirements of the eligibility phase. So again, it commenced on April 1st, and it ends on December 27th. You can see that all of the milestones that we have met in terms of submitting documentation to MSBA, and I think usually the eligibility period culminates in securing funding for a feasibility study. The Neary building project, sorry, wrong town. The Peaslee building project is ahead of schedule, and with the town meeting members voting approval of funding for the feasibility study at this past spring meeting. So that is an important part of the process and makes, I think, the work a little bit easier in terms of eligibility phase. So that is a high-level summary. Again, we've submitted all the required documents, and now we are waiting to hear back from MSBA to schedule a meeting, potentially to invite the town of Northborough into feasibility.
Thank you. Thank you. So that was a review on our key milestones and timeline. At this time, I would move to our other business and welcome any thoughts or new items from the committee first. And I'd like to introduce a topic and welcome Mitch's comments on this, which is the topic of a liaison from our financial planning in town. So Mitch, would you like to comment on this?
Sure. So I also serve on the Fire Station Building Committee, as most of you here know. That was thankfully approved by town meeting just a week ago, and goes to the ballot soon. Keep your fingers crossed. That's the next project on deck prior to this one, the Peaslee School. One of the things that we decided to do during the process was to have a liaison from the Financial Planning Committee. The Financial Planning Committee is basically the capital planning committee of the town. They're responsible for long-range capital forecasts and reviewing projects and everything else. They get involved in all capital projects, but pay particular attention to those that cost a lot of money. And building projects cost a lot of money, so it makes sense for them to be very involved. At the beginning of that process, the town administrator, who appoints all building committees, appointed John Rappa, who's here in the audience, who's a member and now chair of the Financial Planning Committee, as a voting member of the Fire Station Building Committee. It was determined later that, shame on us, we did not notice that our bylaws prohibit that type of appointment. So our bylaws say that members of the Financial Planning Committee, as well as the Appropriations Committee, can't be voting members of any other town committee. We, speaking loosely on behalf of the Fire Station Building Committee, really valued John's input and participation and thought it was good to have a formal connection between our body and financial planning. So it was determined that we should have a liaison position, if you will, set up. Financial Planning Committee, suggested that John continue in that role. We discussed it briefly at a Fire Station Building Committee meeting and said, yeah, that's a good idea, and John has continued to participate. by the way that we have formed that is we treat him as like a non-voting member, basically like a staff position, where he has a seat at the table, participates in all the discussions, gets all the materials in advance of meetings, et cetera, but does not have a vote. And that has worked out very, very well. So a few different people simultaneously said, hey, we should really do the same thing because we're building towards another big project for the town, and we should really have formal cooperation and participation from financial planning. Scott Stockland, who I know, he and I served on the Town Administrator Search Committee from last year's version of that. Is a really good and intelligent person. He is the school committee's appointee to the Financial Planning Committee. And the Financial Planning Committee has asked that he become the liaison to this committee. I think it's a great idea. I would like us to deal with that in the same way that the Fire Station Building Committee has, and invite him up to wherever he sits and fully participate. His role would be communicating to us financial concerns and interests of the town, and also bringing information back to their committee, thinking selfishly on, as a member of this committee where we want this project to be eventually approved by the town. It is very helpful to establish that line of communication early, so that when we go before them in another 2 years, 3 years, whatever it happens to be, and ask for what I anticipate is probably an even bigger project than the fire station building project, it won't be new to them. And I think that's important for the success of this committee. So I think it's a good idea that we do that. I'll leave it up to Erica how we decide to do that. The way it was done with Fire Station Building Committee is just the chair announced, hey, somebody's going to be the liaison. They're going to be sitting up at the table in a non-voting position, and that was about it. But I leave it up to Erica how to sort that out, assuming that folks are in agreement.
Thank you. So we've had a discussion about a financial planning liaison, and it's Scott, right?
Yes,
So it's my understanding that, Scott, you are willing to serve in such a role?
I am.
Okay. And so is there any discussion, I guess as chair, I'm looking for a consensus one way or the other from the voting members on the committee as to how you feel about doing a liaison. I'm seeing some nodding.
Yeah, I think it's a great way to have connectivity back both to the community, but also to other town administrative functions. So I fully support, as stated.
I would second that. I'm also on the fire building committee, and it has been really helpful for us just as we've worked through all the financial challenges. So I would support it.
Thank you. Any other discussion or thoughts from the committee members? Yes.
So Scott is our appointed financial planning committee member from the school committee. So we appointed him in June. So I think it has sort of just a natural flow, him sort of being appointed by the school committee, this being a school building project.
Excellent. Thank you. Based on the feedback then, as chair, I would say that there's a consensus from our committee, and I would welcome Scott and thank you for your interest and involvement and collaboration.
Of course, yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any other new business from members of the committee? Questions or updates?
I have a minor question, just back to the items that need to get done by the end of December. There's a maintenance and capital planning information item that says it's due by September 20th, and it doesn't have the little complete badge next to it. I
That
assume
is
that's
complete,
either.
yes.
It is complete? Perfect. Okay. That's it.
Thank you. So at this time, I'll close our other business from committee members, but I would like to open for public comment, and we do have some folks joining us in the room tonight. Is there any public comment, questions, or items of interest that you'd like to bring before this committee this evening? Thank you. And hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Before we do, I just have
Yes.
one question. Other than the list of things coming up for the end of this year, are there any other deliverables coming, expected from the committee, or information that we presented to the committee prior to the MSBA's decision, December 27th?
Yes,
So I
please,
think
Greg.
that in terms of the committee's deliverables, I think we've checked all the boxes. And I would say for those of you who've experienced MSBA's process, eligibility is probably the least time-consuming process or phase. And I think you'll see, if invited into feasibility, that's when the work really starts in earnest.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Did we have other dates on the calendar? I can't remember.
We don't
For
have.
future.
Well, we talked about a November meeting, but we don't have anything official right now.
Okay. I didn't know if we wanted to.
Yeah, I think
Do
what we'll do
calendars or
is
just do the-
similar to last time. I'll have Mariana send out another invite with sort of a poll for our next meeting.
Yeah, I think that process worked very well.
Okay, good feedback.
You mentioned Google issues. Is that a thing with attachments? or just
attachment.
It was an
voting?
attachment issue.
Okay. Just want to make sure that wasn't.
And we can
precluding anybody
start
from the
doing a linked
process.
agenda too, so you can
Yeah.
link and have all the minutes.
Of course.
Thank you. Well, thanks again for everyone to come out. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. So there's a motion and a second to adjourn at 7:55 PM. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Opposed? Abstaining? Motion carries, so we'll adjourn at 7:55.